The galaxy had been mapped for over 12,000 years. Every star system, every habitable world, every species capable of thought had been catalogued and recorded in the great archive of the Valorian Imperium. The Imperium controlled 70% of known space, and their word was law among the stars. When the Imperium said something did not exist, it simply did not exist. Humans learned this the hard way. Captain Elena Vasquez stood on the bridge of the U.S. Defiance, watching the holographic display flicker with static. Her jaw was tight, her dark eyes burning with barely contained rage. 3 diplomatic vessels had been sent to the Valorian border in the past decade. 3 times, humanity had extended a hand in peace. 3 times, the Valorians had responded with silence and destruction. The official Valorian position was simple and devastating. Humans were not real. They were a classification error, a footnote that had been removed from the Great Archive centuries ago. The Valorian High Council had declared that the species known as humanity had gone extinct during the Purging Wars, and therefore, any ships claiming to represent them were either pirates or confused members of lesser races using a dead name. When the diplomatic vessel Harmony had been vaporized at the border with 400 souls aboard, the Valorian ambassador had released a statement saying that no diplomatic incident had occurred because one cannot have an incident with something that does not exist. Admiral Shun Wei stood beside Elena, his weathered face showing the weight of command. He had lost his daughter on the Harmony. He had watched the recording of its destruction 17 times, memorizing every second of the Valorian warship's attack. Now he commanded the largest fleet humanity had ever assembled, and he had no intention of asking for permission to exist. The Imperial fleet of Earth stretched across 3 light minutes of space. 147 warships, ranging from swift destroyers to the massive dreadnoughts that formed the fleet's core. At the center of the formation sat the flagship, the U.S. Eternal Fury, a vessel so large that it dwarfed everything around it. The Fury had been built for one purpose, to make a statement that could not be ignored. Elena received the signal she had been waiting for. The border station was directly ahead, a massive Valorian construct that monitored all traffic entering Imperium space. It was heavily armed and had destroyed countless ships that had tried to cross without authorization. The Valorians believed it to be invincible. Admiral Chun's voice came through the fleet communication network, calm and steady. He ordered the fleet to advance at full speed and instructed them not to fire unless fired upon. He reminded them that they were there to be acknowledged, not to start a war. But he made it clear that if the Valorians chose war, humanity would finish it. The fleet moved as one, engines flaring brilliant blue against the darkness of space. Elena felt her heart pounding as the Defiance surged forward, taking its position in the formation's leading edge. She had served in the Navy for 20 years, had fought pirates and slavers and rogue colonies, but she had never faced anything like this. The border station detected them immediately. Warning signals flooded all frequencies, demanding identification and threatening destruction. The Valorian commander's voice was sharp and authoritative, ordering the unidentified vessels to halt and submit to inspection. He spoke in the common trade language, the one used for communicating with lesser species. Admiral Chun responded in perfect Valorian, a language he had spent 5 years learning for this exact moment. He identified himself and his fleet as representatives of the United Earth Empire. He stated that they were requesting formal diplomatic contact with the Valorian High Council. He demanded that humanity be recognized as a sovereign species with full rights under interstellar law. The silence that followed lasted 17 seconds. Then the Valorian commander laughed. He explained, as if speaking to a child, that the species claiming to be human had clearly stolen records from some forgotten archive. He told them that true humans had been eliminated during the Purging Wars, along with several other problematic species. He advised them to turn around and return to whatever hole they had crawled from before he was forced to cleanse them as well. Elena watched the tactical display as the border station's weapons powered up. Massive plasma batteries rotated toward the fleet, targeting systems locking onto the leading vessels. The Valorian commander gave them 30 seconds to retreat. Admiral Chun did not retreat. Instead, he ordered the fleet to assume attack formation Omega. The ships moved with practiced precision, spreading out while maintaining overlapping fields of fire. The dreadnoughts moved to the front, their heavy armor capable of absorbing punishment that would destroy lesser vessels. The Valorian commander stopped laughing. He had expected the unknown fleet to scatter or beg for mercy. Instead, they were preparing for battle with a discipline he had rarely seen outside Valorian military forces. He demanded to know who these invaders truly were and warned that the full might of the Imperium would crush them. Admiral Chun's response was simple. He told the commander that they were human and that they would be acknowledged. The station opened fire first. Massive plasma bolts streaked across space, slamming into the dreadnought shields. The impacts were tremendous, overloading shield generators and scorching armor plating. 3 destroyers caught in the crossfire exploded instantly, their crews having no time to escape. But the fleet did not break. Instead, it returned fire with everything it had. Human weapons technology had developed differently than Valorian systems. While the Imperium relied on plasma and particle beams, humanity had perfected kinetic weapons on a scale never before attempted. The dreadnoughts carried magnetic accelerator cannons capable of launching tungsten projectiles at significant fractions of light speed. The impact of a single round carried more energy than a nuclear weapon. The first volley struck the border station's shields and collapsed them completely. The second volley punched through the outer hull, vaporizing dozens of compartments. The third volley hit the station's power core, and the entire structure vanished in a blinding explosion that outshone the nearest star. Elena felt no joy at the destruction. She felt only grim satisfaction that humanity had finally struck back. But she knew this was only the beginning. News of the border station's destruction spread through the Imperium like wildfire. Emergency transmissions were sent to the nearest fleet bases, and within hours, the Valorian Third Fleet was mobilizing to intercept the human incursion. 200 warships, including several of the legendary Dominion-class battlecruisers, moved to crush what they still called a minor pirate action. Admiral Chen expected this. He had studied Valorian military doctrine for years, learning their patterns and their weaknesses. The Imperium had not faced a serious military challenge in over a millennium. Their tactics were textbook, their commanders arrogant, their ships powerful but designed for intimidation rather than real combat. The 2 fleets met in the Siren system, a barren collection of dead worlds that would become humanity's first major victory. The Valorian commander was named Archantilius, a decorated officer who had never lost a battle. He commanded his fleet from the bridge of his flagship, the Pride of Valoria, absolutely confident that he would sweep aside these pretenders within the hour. He did not bother with complex tactics, simply ordering a direct assault that would overwhelm the smaller human fleet through sheer numbers. What he did not know was that Admiral Chun had spent the previous 6 hours seeding the system with hidden weapons platforms. As the Valorian fleet advanced, they flew directly into a carefully prepared trap. The first wave of missile platforms activated when the enemy ships were fully committed to their attack run. Thousands of warheads streaked out of the asteroid field where they had been concealed, slamming into the Valorian formation from unexpected angles. Shield generators overloaded under the sustained assault, and ships that had never known defeat suddenly found themselves fighting for survival. The human fleet struck while the Valorians were still recovering. The dreadnoughts unleashed their main batteries, kinetic rounds tearing through weakened shields and crippling enemy vessels. Destroyers darted through the chaos, targeting engines and weapon systems with surgical precision. The carrier Prometheus launched wave after wave of strike craft, each one carrying warheads designed to penetrate Valorian armor. Archon Teleus watched his fleet being systematically destroyed and could not understand how this was happening. His ships were superior. His commanders were the finest in the Imperium. These humans, these creatures who did not even officially exist, should have been crushed in minutes. Instead, his flagship was surrounded by the burning wreckage of his command. The final blow came when the UES Eternal Fury advanced through the Valorian formation. The massive ship shrugged off attacks that would have destroyed anything else, its shields holding firm as it positioned itself directly in front of the pride of Valoria. Admiral Chun personally transmitted his final demand, instructing Archon Teleus to surrender his fleet and transmit a formal request for diplomatic recognition to the High Council. Teleus refused. He ordered all remaining ships to concentrate fire on the human flagship, determined to die with honor rather than submit to creatures the Imperium had declared non-existent. The Fury's response was decisive. Its main cannon, a weapon that had never been fired in combat, discharged a concentrated beam of pure gravitational force. The Pride of Valoria collapsed in on itself, crushed into a sphere barely 10 meters across. The remaining Valorian ships witnessed the impossible and finally understood that they were facing something beyond their experience. 53 Valorian vessels surrendered. Another 64 had been destroyed or disabled. The rest fled, carrying word of the disaster back to the Imperium's core worlds. Admiral Chun did not pursue the survivors. His mission was not conquest, but recognition. He gathered his fleet, tended to the wounded, honored the dead, and waited. The response from the Valorian High Council came 3 days later. It was not an apology or an acknowledgement of humanity's existence. Instead, it was a declaration of total war. The Imperium mobilized its full military might, preparing to erase humanity from the galaxy once and for all. Elena read the declaration and smiled grimly. She had expected nothing less. The Valorians were too proud to admit their mistake, too arrogant to accept that a species they had written off was now a genuine threat. But humanity had proven something important at Siren. They had proven that they could fight the Imperium and win. They had proven that their technology could match or exceed Valorian systems. Most importantly, they had proven that they would not simply disappear because someone had removed their name from an ancient archive. The war that followed would last 18 years. It would cost billions of lives on both sides. It would reshape the galaxy's power structure and force every species to reconsider their assumptions about the natural order of things. But all of that began at Siren, where a single human fleet faced an empire that denied their existence and forced that empire to acknowledge the truth. Humanity was real. Humanity was dangerous. And humanity was not going anywhere. Admiral Chun stood on the bridge of the Eternal Fury as his fleet prepared for the long journey home. He knew that darker days were coming, that the full weight of the Imperium would descend upon Earth and her colonies with devastating force. But he also knew that humanity had survived worse. They had survived ice ages and plagues and nuclear wars. They had survived their own worst impulses and emerged stronger each time. The Valorians thought they were facing a remnant, a mistake, a species that should not exist. They would soon learn that humanity's greatest strength was not their ships or their weapons or their technology. It was their absolute refusal to accept extinction. The fleet jumped to faster-than-light speed, carrying with it the first victory of a war that would change everything. Behind them, the wreckage of the Third Fleet drifted among the stars, a monument to Valorian arrogance and human determination. The Imperium had denied their existence. The Imperial fleet had made them acknowledge it. And this was only the beginning.